Hello!
Hello!
Welcome to the Ginger Games Board, Ginger Media Limited's podcast for all things board games.
My name is Debbie, and this is...
Christopher Stephen, or at least that's what it says on the screen.
And I almost forgot it as well, so that's good. I know you.
Okay.
Right. So, start of the podcast, start of a new adventure. Let's just dive straight into things. Like I said, this is Chris, this is Debbie, and we've known each other for quite a while, haven't we?
Yeah. Like I say, we've been knowing each other for many years.
Enthusiastic gamers of the board game.
Of the board game variety.
Of the board game.
You can't move in our house for board games being in every room. Look, they're even behind there. Look, there. Right.
It's not just that, it's that when we actually moved from different places, majority of stuff we have to move is board games. So this is a chance to us to show our knowledge as well as experiencing new knowledge, new games, new interests, and dive into other bits and pieces as well.
Yeah.
But today we're going to look at, well, to start things off, I don't even know what is in your top 10 list of board games to start off with.
Yeah. Now, what we thought would be good, normally what we do at this point is to start with like the news of latest board games. But as we're getting to know you and probably a bit more about each other.
You're not going to sing, are you?
No.
No? Get to know you.
I don't think we've got paid royalties if we do that sort of thing. What we thought we'd quite like to do to kick things off is show each other our sort of top 10 list of board games. Now, basically, we sort of promised for this list were just sort of board games we enjoyed playing, well, either sort of while we're growing up, so it could be classics, could be more modern day ones that we've come to enjoy, and just basically, sort of done things that way.
And try and go through each one of them and tell them why it's one of our favorites, through possibly nostalgia reasons, hilarity reasons, maybe just out of pure, utter enjoyment of it.
Yeah. Now, I should stress that we've put these top 10 lists together and we've not seen each other's list, not had a sneaky peek at them.
Nope.
And given we're a married couple...
It's not very often that we don't share.
Yeah, and just saying that if all these board games are different, then the marriage could suffer a little bit because of that. So
I still think that some of my top 10 might be some of your top 10. But I'm just speculating for the moment. So, the question is, who goes first?
I think we'll just...
I am.
No, I think we'll just... We'll just reveal them. So we'll just reveal them together.
No. We'll do your ones first. That way we can go through your ones step by step.
Well, I'd quite like to see if any of the games actually match. So let's just put them up to the camera to start off with, and then we'll go through them. So
okay,
ready?
I am. My board is bigger than yours.
It's not about the size; it's about what you do with it that counts.
Is that the size of the board game or the size of the actual writing board?
Right. Anyway, here we go.
Okay, so
On three.
One, two, three. I can see my reflection. Oh, okay.
All right. Oh, what we got there?
Ion. What's wrong with your list? Okay, so I wasn't too far off.
Okay,
some of yours is very similar.
There's a few there that are the same. So, okay.
Okay, so let's go with start with.
So let's see. So I did rank them in order. So we've got Operation in the bottom there. Guess who?
The one is actually a top 10 list.
Yeah. Guess who? Question mark. I quite like board games that have punctuation in them. I've noticed while I was doing this list.
Okay.
Try and sort of get the glare off the camera there. So going from the bottom. Operation. Guess who? Frustration! ! Scattergrace.
Okay.
The logo board game. Dingbats.
I am. Dingbats?
Dingbats. I'll go on to talk about it in a bit. Blockbusters. Now that's not the former video rental store. It's the TV board game based on the TV version. Boggle, Cluedo, and top of the tree for me is Monopoly.
Now, are we talking classic Monopoly here, or we're talking about any interpretations?
No, again, one of the things to sort of talk about because
Actually, I'll leave your list out there for a second, just so I can actually have a wee look at it.
okay. Right.
Because I know that there's different many interpretations of Monopoly, and the reason I mention that is that one of mine is this one.
Monopoly Lord of the Rings. Ooh.
You see, because even though I do like the Lord of the Rings, even though I do like the Monopoly, both the classic original as well as many different interpretations, I would have gone for the classic, but this one just holds something for me.
Okay.
And I can't help it. I really can't help it.
All right. Well, let's go through your top 10 while we're.
I'll tell you what.
Well, no, show it on the screen again. So.
Okay, so my one is here we go. So at the top again, this is not in particular order because I don't actually have an order.
Fair enough.
Trivial Pursuit, Busy Buzzy Bumbles,
Ooh.
Frustration,
There we go. And my classic.
Boggle, Party Mania. Have you ever heard of Party Mania?
It rings a bell, but
I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Cluedo, the classic version. That's why I want to ask about your
fair
one,
enough,
about
fair
classics. Hungry Hippos, Chess, Star Trek: The Next Generation game, and Monopoly Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
So I was right in the sense that some of mine is very similar to some of yours.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So Monopoly.
Surprised I forgot about
Boggle.
Surprised I forgot about Trivial Pursuit because I've got quite a lot of the different versions of that. So.
It's not that. I'm actually quite surprised because every time you go over to mum and dad's house over Christmas, New Year, anything like that, guarantee you that game was always played.
That's true.
So that I'm quite surprised about. And you always kick our butts as well.
Well, don't like to brag. Okay, so.
Okay, so out of your words, how many do we have the same? So we've got Frustration, Boggle,
Monopoly. Monopoly.
Monopoly.
Technically, the variants is the one, and Cluedo.
And Cluedo. Okay, so I was right in the sense that there'll be some of yours and some of mine that will be the same.
Okay.
So, tell you what, Dingbats.
Okay,
I
so
think I may have heard of Dingbats, but
Dingbats is sort of a variant form of catchphrase, but it's a bit more down to earth. So you
I
basically.
thought catchphrase was down to earth because you have to. Here's the catchphrase. Name the catchphrase.
Yeah, but it's more sort of basic than that. So rather than like have like sort of acted out like bits of animation or stuff, it's literally just a flat 2D picture, and you have to guess the word or phrase based on that.
Okay.
So for example, you'd have the words milk and. You'd have the words. Probably demonstrate.
Try to do it on the other side.
Yeah. So, for example, you get one of the cards, and it looks something like that.
Milk and wood.
Yeah.
But you can't milk wood.
Yeah, but what the phrase is actually under milk wood. You see? Because under milk wood, and it just be stuff like that. So like I say, it's like catchphrase, but a bit sort of more basic than that. I think. Actually,
basic? You call that basic?
Well, there's sort of forms of it, and some of the where the puzzles were harder than others. It's a bit actually what it is like is that daytime game show that they released last year with the bloke Henry from the Goes Wrong show. The last game was loads of those in 60 seconds.
Oh god, I can picture it, but I can't put a name to it.
I can't remember it either, but
it's not a board game.
Well, again, bits of that were based on said board game. So
yeah,
right. Party Mania. I don't really remember that one.
Now, do you remember one of those games during the 90s? A lot of the games were trying to be more interactive. So they brought out like a VHS you insert with the board game laid out. You read the instructions on the VHS, and that'll help you play the game. So during the 90s, VHS interactive. The scenario is you have to get ready for a party, but there's a lot of things happening in your way. By lots of things, I mean family members, the annoying brother, the clueless dad, boys knocking at your door, gossiping friends, that sort of thing.
Right.
So The aim of the game is to go around the board and try and avoid getting stuck doing homework or stuck playing the piano. There will be a chance for you to get out of that. And you have to try and pick up tokens. Now, these tokens are what we called getting ready tokens.
All right.
So it'll be like something for clothing, something for beauty, like makeup, hair, that sort of thing as well. It's very, very sexist when you think about it from like 20 years ago, but it was still a fun game back then, purely because of the
Right.
memories. But the best thing about it is that it's so Americanized. For example, some of the actors that played the roles of like the snooty friend, one of the brothers had a crush on you, to one of the dorks, geeks, whatever I like to call it, they've actually progressed on to do other TV shows. So I suppose if you want to start somewhere, start in a board game.
So these first roles that people get, because like you get it's a bit like the sort of video games you used to get in the 90s, which were full motion video games.
Exactly. Now the good thing about this one is that it was time limited, so you had a time limit, and during the whole of this course, people throw you chore cards, and you have to try to eliminate or get rid of your chore cards, collect the tokens, and be at the front door of the board before the timer runs out. That way you can go off to the party, and they showcase what happens if you don't go to the party and if you do go to the party. So if there's going to be like about 4 or 5 of you playing, some of them may not be able to make it to the party, so they have to hang out with the mum and dad, the weird aunt, and the weird people visiting the house, or they go out with their mates to a party. Try and do that nowadays, but nowadays it'll be a YouTube clip, a board game, FaceTime all the time with all your friends rather than over the phone.
I think the modern day equivalent of all these sort of video games like The Last of Us and that, where it's all sort of storyline driven and things like that.
But
that's fair enough.
It's proper Americanized. Oh my god, let's get ready. Oh my god, I hope he's going to be there. Sort of thing. But I did have quite a lot of playing with it. So that's why it's on my top 10 games.
Well, that's cool.
Many, many memories.
All right. What else have we got on there?
I think mine is a bit more unusual compared to your list.
I think your one's definitely more active. I remember Busy Buzzy Bumblebees and Hungry Hungry Hippos from the fact that it involved a lot of physical movement. Well, Hungry Hungry Hippos was just sort of button mashing. Remember, Busy Buzzy Bumblebees, that was the thing you have to wear like a bumblebee in your head, wasn't it?
So for Busy Buzzy Bumblebees, you know how back in, again, I'm just going to go back to the 90s. I grew up in the 90s, so all my games came from the 90s. There was one particular game, Busy Buzzy Bumbles, and they had an amazing advert. And actually, when you're a kid, you enjoy the advert, like, oh my god, Mom, Dad, I saw what this game. And at the time, now this brings back more nostalgia than anything else, where me, my sister, my dad, and maybe one of our grandparents and whatnot would place like a band around your head, and then we have to attach a little solid bee with a little wire, and that wire gets attached to the band. Now, if someone's wearing glasses doing this, and if you do that, and you have this bee bounce up and down, you can easily break a pair of glasses. But the fact that at the end of the bee, there's a wee like magnet at the bottom, and you have to try and catch the nectar in your own color, and the first one of your color bee to pick up that color nectar wins. But everyone play this on the floor. No one even dared to put this on a table, because if you were to lean forward, the table would just go flying up, nectar gets flown everywhere, and someone can get hurt.
Well, and everyone's different heights as well, so
not when I think it was my granddad that tried to play that, and I'm not too sure about this. This is probably just me, but I think I do remember he had like a short sleeve shirt, and he had a packet of cigarettes in his top pocket. And I think they fell out, or were about to fall out, and he managed to tuck it back in as this thing was dingling all about the place.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, the time was when board games had lots and lots of parts that you could use, and like the two of them that come to mind on my list definitely your Operation and Blockbusters, because sort of Operation particularly because just parts of that got running across the whole you play it, and then things would just get lost and go across the whole house, particularly with Operation with all the little bits.
Now, I see, I don't think my mum and dad ever wanted us to get Operation because we had dogs, and we were afraid that the little pieces might get swallowed by the dog.
That's a fair point. I mean, like I say, I obviously quite like to keep the sort of board games in order, so it's quite a bit particular game of that. But we had
Yeah,
like
but you
one.
don't have any pets, so
That's very true.
So you don't have to worry about the cat, the dog, the goldfish get swallowing pieces of items, were you?
I suppose.
Although I'd be very impressed if you did find a goldfish that swallowed half a liver.
Well, I think Blockbusters was a bit better because those were days where they actually made time and effort. So normally it's when you get a thing based in the board game, it's just like a set of pieces and the board, and that's about it. For Blockbusters, you actually had a proper. They brought to life the hexagonal board that they had in the game show with literally a board with pieces of plastic you put in with blue and white for getting the correct answers.
Yep. I think during that time, there's always some form of experimental games. And when you mentioned about putting things in after the holes, that just relates back into the frustration.
That's true.
Because frustration is like
frustration.
For those that haven't played it before, you may have had. It's like a square-shaped board. In the center was a wee dome, and inside the dome was like a dice, and you have to pop it to spin the dice, so to speak. But there's a little path. Basically, imagine like a little hole, and you have to basically insert a little piece into the hole. That's one space, that's two space, that's three space, that's four space.
Essentially, it's
you can't do it speedy style. You have to do it nice and slowly, so that way your piece can able to fit into the.
It's basically Ludo, isn't it? Like
yeah.
I think they're sort of selling the USP, as they call it these days, of frustration as opposed to Ludo, which was the fact that rather than roll a dice and have tokens, you literally had a dice that you popped in the center of the board, and I quite like that, to be brutally honest.
Can you imagine if Dungeons and Dragons did that with their dices?
That was so good.
How amazing would that be? But the downside is that they'll probably use like different types of dices, so the domes will have to be huge because they've got different size to it.
Basically, the only two places you see that nowadays are the only two places you see that nowadays are on variant games of frustration, because everybody's knocked it off, and on online gambling sites where they roll dice, but they can't obviously lose the dice, so they've got a dome where they pop the dice on and off as well.
At the same time, the reason it was so popular was purely the fact that you don't ever lose the dice.
Yeah, and you didn't really lose the pieces either, because there were sort of these sort of big sort of plastic holes that you could put them in.
That's the ones I was telling you about.
Yeah.
So one time, my mum was playing this game with me and my sister, and I remember my mum saying to me, "You have to put the piece into the hole and out of the hole to make it one step." So you can't go 1, 2, 3, 4. You go 1, 2. I think that was frustrating. There you go.
See what you did there. That's the game.
That's the game. Okay, so we talked about being frustrated with frustration. So that was properly named thing. Now, I think I might have mentioned this before, because something like Dingbat, what was the other one? Guess Who? And Cluedo, they are essentially like a guessing games.
Yeah, I mean, Cluedo's obviously the sort of main one, because
classic?
Yeah, definitely classic, because it just involved the sort of set pieces. So you basically a game can last very, very long as you keep sort of guessing this, as you keep sort of going to the rooms and guessing the same thing.
Okay, write down in the comments which version you prefer of Cluedo. The original version, where there's actually a Colonel Mustard, Reverend Green, Miss White, Mrs. Peacock, or do you prefer the modern versions where you have extensions, like a garage, and you have to go into a little extension, into a bedroom, and you get en suite.
It's more than that. Like they've sort of even got rid of the rules thing, because obviously one of them was a reverend and one of them was a professor. Now they're all modernized characters, which I think it loses something a bit.
I think one of them ends up being like a vlogger at one point. I mean, I understand nowadays that is a profession and that is absolutely brilliant, but not a classic reverend.
Yeah, Reverend, Colonel, Professor.
Even Mrs. White, she was a cook. She dressed herself up as a cook. Now, I think the reason both me and you put down Cluedo down as well is that we're both very partial to the film
Clue.
adaptation of the game.
Well, the film, and like I say, I told Debbie about this. There was a TV series, a TV game show that's based on Cluedo.
I remember because, like, I think we tried looking at a few of this on YouTube at one point, and
basically, it ran for a few series. It used to be hosted by Chris Tarrant and then Richard Madeley, of all places, of all people, and they had a sort of changing cast list for each of the 6 characters, and you got people like Leslie Grantham, aka Dirty Den, playing Colonel Mustard. Had Joanna Lumley playing Miss Scarlet.
You had Molly Sugden from Are You Being Served playing Mrs. White.
I mean,
I'm sorry, that of all casting
Nicholas
choice,
Parsons playing Reverend Green. I mean, some of the casting choices were amazing. And in top of the heap, Tom Baker, Doctor Who playing Professor Plum.
I was literally gonna say sometimes there's perfect characters to fit that role, but if you were to include the film version of Clue, now for anyone who has seen the film Clue, it was done during the 80s, and they basically created a film based on the game Cluedo. Some of the characters were named as Mrs. White, Miss Scarlet, and so on and so forth, and they had to try to figure out who killed.
Yeah, and Mr.
Body.
Mr. Body.
Mr. Body. Yeah.
I think he's Dr. Black in our version, but he's Mr. Body in the American version of the game, which is called Clue, obviously. Yeah. Hence the title. And
some of the classic actors that are in
Tim
there.
Curry, obviously.
Tim Curry
chews the scenery, but does it in such a way that it's just the way Tim Curry plays everything.
Christopher Lloyd.
Again, playing Professor Plum.
Madeline Kahn.
She was Miss Scarlet, wasn't she?
White.
Well, Miss White, yeah.
Madeline Kahn is more mainly known for being in Mel Brooks' films. She was in What's Up, Doc? She's essentially a fantastic comic character. She's also an opera singer as well, which kind of checks my box. Mm-hmm. Excellent. Who else? There was... I recognise a few people from other TV shows and other things.
Yeah, because the guy who played Principal... The guy who played Vice Principal Kraft in Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
That's the one I'm thinking.
He was Colonel Mustard. I can't remember what his name is.
And the guy that played, the woman that played Miss Scarlet, she was in Will and Grace.
Oh yeah.
She was the adulterer to Will's dad. Again, I can't think of the name of her. Anyway, so
classic movie. But it's not a movie. It's not a movie podcast. It's a video game podcast.
No, how dare we? How dare we?
Yeah.
So, back into board games. Sorry, we just love that film so much. It's classic Clue.
Yeah. Okay. Let's pick one more from each of those lists.
Okay. So I think I played the rest of those games. So. I don't think you've played some of my games that I've played before.
Well, no, I did have Busy Bumble. I believe it was Busy Bumblebees.
No, Bumbles are checked.
Oh, is it?
Mandela Effect.
Oh, God, yeah.
Put that onto the list of games that you think is on the Mandela Effect.
Now, of course.
Stay tuned for the next couple of podcasts, because what we're talking about now will be on one of them. So.
But yeah, that brings us on neatly. I think the last sort of game we'll talk about, and then we'll focus on it, is Monopoly, the big one.
Well, there's that one, or there's the island.
Right.
I'm surprised you not wanted to talk about this one. I'm not sure if everyone can see that.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
Star Trek: The Next Generation game.
Okay.
So hands up.
Talk us through that one.
Okay, first of all, hands up those that have seen Star Trek: The Next Generation with Patrick Stewart in it.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Yeah. So I grew up. My mum and dad were Trekkies. They weren't like fan base huge Trekkies, but they were Trekkies in the sense that they like to enjoy it. They like the characters, the actors, and me and my sister got involved as well. And I think it's like 92, 93 this game was released. Mm-hmm. And again, it was one of the first ones where it was a VHS interactive game. And the scenario was this. The Enterprise was going under some repairs, and William Riker does a log saying like what's happened with the ship, so on and so forth. And in the introductory video, you see a teleportation happening, landing on the bridge. And then you see a pair of I don't know exactly what you call them, but a pair of shoes with the style of image of a Klingon. And you see this Klingon, you don't see the face of the Klingon, and you just watch about the ship until he gets to engineering, I think it is. And then you see the Klingon who goes into engineering and is the actor who plays Galron in the Star Trek Next Generation as well as DS9. But in this, he's not Galron, he's just this generic Klingon character.
Okay.
And essentially it's him taking over the ship because he's a part of this like a radicalized group to bring it back to Klingon space air to try and study it and be against the Federation. But what he doesn't realize that there's a team of engineers on board fixing the ship, and it's basically you are one of the engineers against this Klingon trying to outwit him and try and outsmart him and whatnot. And again, it's on a timer basis, so you have to make sure that you're able to get control of the ship before it gets into Klingon airspace. So it is quite a lot of fun, but it's definitely like a niche game in the sense that if you have seen Star Trek in any different form, particularly Next Generation, that you understand the game, you understand the shape of the ship, and the board game itself was actually the outline of the shape of the ship.
Oh, that looks good. Oh,
I need to get my first teeth back in, and the shape of the ship. And every so often you see Garon, the Klingon, him getting frustrated and trying to rally against us. Now, at the time, my mom and dad gave us, or at least gave us, me and my sister, our own little Star Trek outfits. So me and my sister always had the blue ones, okay? I was always Crusher. Because what's a little stick there? So I was
ginger hair. That's what.
I didn't have ginger hair. I had brown hair when I was a kid. I didn't have all this. So I had brown hair as a kid, but I always wanted to be Crusher. And my sister, she used to have lots of colored brown hair, and she used to be Deanna Troi. So I was the Crusher, she was the Deanna Troi. We both wore blue Star Trek outfits. We had a little name badge and pins. I'm not joking. We actually had the actual badge pin and little pips just here as well. I was only a lieutenant though, so not very happy with that. But definitely a worthwhile game. So if you get a chance to find this on eBay, on Amazon, on any of the game board networks, get you a chance to watch this. As long as you have a VHS. Who actually has VHS nowadays?
I was about to say, a lot of these games require a lot of VHS tape, I'm thinking, which would be a bit hard to play these days.
But at the same time, because of the revolutionary of the interactive board games and whatnot, nowadays it's all DVDs.
Oh, you
Blu-rays,
get
that
sort
sort of
of alternate reality games that they have specific websites that you access and things like that. So
I think if you had this when you were a kid and you have people willing to play with you, I think you probably would enjoy this as well.
Cool. Okay. Also, I think we'll sort of wrap up the discussion there. What we'll do is sort of over the next few weeks, we'll sort of focus on sort of a couple of these games that we've pulled out in general, sort of going a bit more in depth as to sort of the ethos of them and sort of the different variants. Like I say, Monopoly, obviously, we've got the Lord of the Rings version looked
Do
out.
not diss the Lord of the Rings version.
No. That's the whole point. There's
Never,
so
ever
many
diss.
versions of some of these games like Monopoly included in that. So I think it'd be worth sort of going through them in depth.
I'll tell you what, is there any in my list of 10, is there any games that you yourself would like to try for yourself? And we can see if we're able to get ones for you to try.
Well, let's see. I mean, obviously, there's so many chess podcasts out there. I think we're sort of working. It'd be nice to try and get like a classic copy of Frustration. I think we'll try and do that in the future.
We need to be careful because, like, nowadays there's so many different interpretations of Frustration. So if we're able to get a proper version of Frustration, that'd be quite a bit of fun.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so we'll try and get the proper game of Frustration.
How about mine? Is anything that sort of jumps up?
No.
No.
Because I've played all those games before, apart from two. So it's like revisiting some of them. However, if you could think of any other Monopoly-based game or Cluedo or Operation,
Again,
or,
like I said,
yeah,
we'll see if we
just
can
different
get some of the variants.
variations.
We'll see if we can get some of the variants, including some of the new ones, which would be probably a good idea, I think.
That's true. Now, come the next podcast and come the next couple of podcasts, we ourselves are going to be dummies, testing out different games that we haven't tried before. Some of them are actually a part of the top 2022-2023 list, to which we are very interested in playing, but we need to get a few dummies. So we may need to bring in our team of crafty people to come help us out to play them. And then obviously
Translation being we're going to kidnap people from other parts of Ginger Media Limited and force them to play board games with us. It'll be fun.
If you had a monocle just then you could be looking really evil just then.
I was right over there as well.
Oh, too late. Too late. So yeah, come the next one, we'll talk about a bit more about news that's happening. A little bit of myths that's also we found out as well, and we'll dive straight into different board games as well. So I think we're all good. Did you have anything else?
Yeah, just to say thank you for accessing this podcast. This is being done as part of the Ginger Media Limited Group. Check out all the other podcasts. Some of them are absolutely fantastic. And just keep your eye on...
Lovely and fantastic. Have you been in contact with one of them?
Yeah, might have been.
No worries. This is Christopher.
This is Debbie.
And we'll hope to see you in the near future. See you, journeys.
See you then.